Field Marshal Robert Cornwallis Napier, 1st Baron Napier of Magdala GCB, GCSI, FRS, December 6, 1810, January 14, 1890, was an Indian Army officer. He fought in the First Anglo-Sikh War and the Second Anglo-Sikh War before seeing action as chief engineer during the Second Relief of Lucknow in March 1858 during the Indian Mutiny. He also served in the Second Opium War as commander of the 2nd Division of the Expeditionary Force which took part in the Battle of Taku Forts in August 1860, the entry to Peking in September 1860 and the destruction of the Old Summer Palace in October 1860. He subsequently led the punitive expedition to Abyssinia July 1867, defeating the Emperor Tewodros II of Ethiopia with minimal loss of life among his own forces and rescuing the hostages of Tewodros. Military career. Early career. Born the son of Major Charles Frederick Napier, who was wounded at the storming of Mr. Cornwallis, now Jayanagara, in Java on August 26, 1810, and died some months later, and Catherine Napier, née Carrington. Napier was educated at Discombe Military Seminary before being commissioned into the Bengal Engineers on December 15, 1826. He attended the Royal Engineer Establishment at Chatham with the rank of ensign from June 7, 1827 before being promoted to lieutenant on September 28, 1827 and being sent to India in November 1828. After commanding a company at Delhi, he was employed in the irrigation works of the Public Works Department until 1836 when he returned to England for leave on account of his poor health. Promoted to captain on January 25, 1841, he was appointed garrison engineer at Sirhind in 1842. First Anglo-Sikh War. Napier served under Sir Hugh Gough during the First Anglo-Sikh War and commanded the Bengal Engineers at the Battle of Mutiny in December 1845. He was severely wounded at the Battle of Firozshah in December 1845 while storming the Sikh camp and was also present at the Battle of Sobran in February 1846. Promoted to brevet major on April 3, 1846, he was chief engineer at the siege of the fortress of Kot Kangra in the Punjab by Brigadier General Wheeler in May 1846. Second Anglo-Sikh War. Having been appointed as consulting engineer to the Punjab President and to the Council of Regency of the Punjab, Napier was called to direct the siege of Multan in September 1848 at the outset of the Second Anglo-Sikh War. He was wounded during the siege but managed to recover sufficiently to be present at the successful storming of Multan in January 1849 and at the surrender of the fortress of Cheniot shortly thereafter. He took part in the Battle of Gujarat in February 1849 and accompanied Sir Walter Gilbert as he pursued the Sikhs and was at the surrender of the Sikh army. He was promoted to brevet lieutenant colonel on June 7, 1849 and became chief engineer to the Board of Administration of Punjab Province at the end of the war. Northwest Frontier. In December 1852 Napier took command of a column in the 1st Hazara Expedition, and in November 1853 against the Afridas on the northwest frontier. He was promoted to the brevet rank of colonel on November 28, 1854 and the substantive rank of lieutenant colonel on April 15, 1856. Indian Mutiny. Napier was appointed military secretary and adjutant general to Sir James Outram, whose forces took part in the actions leading to the First Relief of Lucknow in September 1857. He remained as chief engineer until the Second Relief in November 1857, when he was badly wounded while crossing an exposed space with Outram and Sir Henry Havelock to meet with Sir Colin Campbell. He recovered sufficiently to be present at the capture of Lucknow in March 1858. Napier then joined Sir Hugh Rose as second-in-command for the march on Gwalior and commanded the 2nd Brigade at the Battle of Murrah in June 1858. After Gwalior fell, Napier and his 700 men pursued, caught and defeated Tejatope's force of 12,000 men on the plains of Jawar-Alipur. After Sir Hugh Rose's departure, Napier assumed command of the Gwalior Division and helped capture Pauri in August 1858, routed Prince Firozpur at Renaud in December 1858 and secured the surrender of Man Singh and Tejatope, ending the war. In January 1859, China in January 1860 during the Second Opium War, Napier assumed command of the 2nd Division of the Expeditionary Force under Sir James Hope Grant and took part in the Battle of Taku Forts in August 1860, the entry to Peking in September 1860 and the destruction of the Old Summer Palace in October 1860. 6. He was promoted to Brevet Major General on February 15, 1861 and to the substantive rank of Colonel on February 18, 1861. Napier became the military member of the Council of the Governor-General of India in 1861, acting for a short while as Governor-General after the sudden death of Lord Elgin. He assumed command of the Bombay Army with the local rank of Lieutenant General on February 7, 1865 and received promotion to the substantive rank of Lieutenant General on March 1, 1867 before taking command of the punitive expedition to Abyssinia July 1867. Abyssinia. Napier achieved his greatest fame as an army officer when he led the expedition of 1868 against Emperor Tewodros II of Ethiopia. The Ethiopian ruler was holding a number of Protestant missionaries hostage, in his mountain capital of Magdala, as well as 2 British diplomats who had attempted to negotiate their freedom. Tewodros had unwisely taken them hostage as well. After months of planning and other preparations, the advance guard of engineers landed at Zula on the Red Sea to construct a port on October 30, 1867. Napier himself arrived in Zula on January 2, 1868, and on January 25, 1868 led his troops south into the Ethiopian highlands. The expedition involved crossing 400 miles, 644 kilometers, of mountainous terrain lacking roads or bridges occupied by local people with a known history of hostility towards outsiders. The expedition overcame the first obstacle, the terrain, by thorough logistical planning and engineering ability. Shrewd diplomacy dealt with the second obstacle, local opposition. On the one hand, Napier made it clear to the Ethiopians that the sole intent of the British force was to rescue the imprisoned Europeans, not conquest. On the other, Napier met with local potentates such as Ras Kassa, the future Emperor Johann IV, and arranged to purchase needed supplies with the 4.35 million Maria Theresa thalers, the preferred currency of the area, the British had purchased from the mint in Vienna. What helped Napier was the general disaffection with, if not hostility to, Tewodros, and a desire to replace him, held by several native leaders, as well as a general sense that his hostage-taking was bound to lead to trouble. Napier's troops reached the foot of Magdala on April 9, 1868, and the next day, Good Friday, he defeated the 9,000 troops still loyal to Tewodros at the Battle of Magdala for the loss of only 2 British lives. Although Emperor Tewodros surrendered his hostages and made repeated efforts for a negotiated surrender, the distrustful Napier pressed on and ordered an assault on the mountain redoubt on April 13, 1868. The British captured Magdala, and Emperor Tewodros killed himself, leaving a grandiose statement that he preferred to fall into the hands of God, rather than man. Napier then ordered the destruction of Tewodros' artillery and the burning of Magdala as retribution. This included the expedition and its troops looting many local artifacts, which they took back to Britain. The artifacts still reside in collections in the UK, despite representations by some for their return. After the Ethiopian campaign, Napier was made a Fellow of the Royal Society and a Freeman of the City of London. He was also elevated to the peerage as Baron Napier of Magdala on July 11, 1868 and granted an annuity for life. Later career Napier became Commander-in-Chief, India with the local rank of full general in April 1870, and having been promoted to the substantive rank of full general on April 1, 1874, he became Governor of Gibraltar in June 1876. In November 1879 he represented Queen Victoria at Madrid as Ambassador Extraordinary upon the occasion of Alfonso XII of Spain's second marriage, and in December 1879 he became a member of the Royal Commission on the Organization of the Army. Standing down as Governor of Gibraltar, he was promoted to Field Marshal on January 1, 1883 and appointed to a Royal Commission and inquire into the condition of the crofters and Cathars in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland in March 1883. Napier was also Honorary Colonel of the 3rd London Rifle Volunteer Corps and Colonel Commandant of the Royal Engineers. He became Constable of the Tower of London in January 1887 but died of influenza at Eaton Square Inches, London on January 14, 1890 and was buried in St Paul's Cathedral.